Canucks got their captain back, and they picked up their first win since the Four Nation break as they beat the Los Angeles Kings 3-2 in overtime. Lots to get to. This is Rink Wide Vancouver. And we welcome you inside the Rink Wide Vancouver studios on a night that saw Connor Garland come up big, 2 goals, including the overtime winner as the Vancouver Canucks defeat the Los Angeles Kings by a score of 3-2. Yes, an overtime win for the Vancouver Canucks. Those have been in short supply all season long. Victories have been hard to come by since they picked up after the Four Nations break. Losses over the weekend in Utah, and before that, Vegas. The Canucks looked like they were in full control. I don't know if you're ever in full control when you're sitting back the way they did in the third period, but they were up 2-0, but the Kings applied pressure. They tied the game. It went to overtime. Canucks had to kill off a penalty. They did that, and then it was Connor Garland pulling the trigger, his second of the night, 16th of the season. 3-2 is the final score. This is Rink Wide Vancouver. I'm Jeff. He is Irf. Rink Wide brought to you in part by Bet365. Whatever the moment, it's never ordinary at Bet365. Be sure to use code NATION when you open an account. And I want to tell you, we've got a new partner, and we'll tell you more about Resurrection Spirits a little later on, but we're excited to have them on board here at Rink Wide Vancouver. Chat is hopping, lots to talk about, some ups and downs for this Vancouver Hockey Club. Nothing comes easy for the Canucks. If you want your comments read here on Rink Wide, hit us up with a super chat. Our charity partner this season, the BC Mental Health Foundation, changing the face of mental health and addiction by supporting breakthroughs in care, public understanding, research, and knowledge exchange. Irf, the smallest Canuck forward, comes up big for this hockey club. Connor Garland with his 16th of the season from Philip Hedl and Quinn Hughes, 4:26 of overtime, a pretty eventful overtime that saw a partial breakaway, a tripping penalty, Tyler Myers have to leave the hockey game. Canucks kill off the penalty, and with their only shot of overtime, they were efficient. They win it in the final minute of OT. It wasn't a perfect night, but at the end, the result looks pretty good for the Canucks.
Yeah, they get the extra point, but they do it the hard way, Jeff. You blow a third period lead, and you end up having to go against the LA Kings, who have the absolute worst power play I think you and I have seen in quite some time. But that's good for the Canucks. I mean, good penalty killing by the Vancouver Canucks. And yes, you just mentioned his name, Connor Garland, playing hero. I think he's played hero a few times this season for the Vancouver Canucks. So without a doubt, there's one player on this roster that you're going to get an A-plus effort every single night. His goals may be few and far between of late, but it's going to be Connor Garland.
Yeah, he has been a little quieter than you would have liked, but Canucks making some changes to their forward lines. Now, they went 11 forwards and 7D because the captain was back. Quinn Hughes playing for the first time since January 31st, the oblique issue that has kept him out of the last 6 games before the break and the first 2 out of the break as well. 10 games overall this season. And even if he's not at 100%, he can be a difference maker. And you saw that. Most of overtime was played 4-on-3 and then 4-on-4. When Drew O'Connor stepped out of the penalty box, there were no whistles. Quinn Hughes couldn't get out there. Who would have thought that Derek Forbort and Joel Edmondson would log a ton of overtime minutes, but that's the way it went down. And then Quinn Hughes ultimately able to get out on the ice, still in a 4-on-4 situation, and moved in on the left wing, a drop pass. onto the stick of Garland. And as we said, Garland moved off the left side boards, snapped it home, and the Canucks win it by a score of 3-2. So good to have Quinn Hughes back. Canucks hockey is just that much better, obviously, when the captain is out there dealing. And we should mention his assist, his 60th point of the season. So we have talked an awful lot about low point totals for most of the Canucks. Certainly not a low point total for Quinn Hughes, back in the lineup for the first time in basically a month, and finds his way onto the score sheet on the winning goals. So it turns out to be a night. He plays 28 minutes. Or sorry, I'm used to saying that. He played 21 minutes and 38 seconds. 2 shots on 5 attempts. And again, I think the fact that they dressed 7 defensemen tells you that they wanted to have a little bit of insurance in case things didn't go so well. It was kind of confusing. He was the extra guy in the warm-up, and at first it looked like he wasn't going to play. And then he was part of the starting lineup. So, yes, he was back in the lineup and back in uniform for the Vancouver Canucks. And, he looked a little rusty. There were some moments there that didn't quite look like the Quinn Hughes that we're used to. He was tagged with 3 turnovers, usually the surest hands on the hockey club. So, like his team, it wasn't a perfect night. But this is an encouraging sign just to get the captain back in there. And you could expect that there was going to be a little rust that had built up. Hadn't played since the game in Dallas when we first noticed that oblique injury. And again, that was January the 31st. So it had been a while since he had faced game action, and he'll get better from here.
Yeah, obviously probably in the lineup tomorrow, and then from there on and so forth. He did an interview with TNT because it was a TNT national game in the States. He said he only expected to play 15 to 16 minutes. So a little bit, obviously, more than that here for Quinn Hughes, but that's kind of the way the game went. And I think that, if you'll ask him, that's totally fine. Wants to be on the ice as much as he can, as he is the Canucks captain. But yeah, you're right. A little bit of rust. Have to shake it off, see what happens here. And then best thing for him, rest tonight. It's a short trip to Anaheim and get right back at it tomorrow. It's the only way you're going to be able to go and, keep playing and, hope the body can recover pretty fast here.
All kinds of things going on. It wasn't a highly eventful hockey game, but the captain's back. They win in overtime, and they leapfrog the Calgary Flames again, and we'll sleep on a playoff spot for this night at least. 65 points for the Vancouver Canucks, who are now 27, 20, and 11 on the season. The road record, 16, 10, and 4. They were tied at 1 into the third period in both Vegas and Utah over the weekend and got nothing out of those games. Some frustration, disappointment. You can understand that. And so when this one got to overtime, at least they knew they were getting something. But when you're up 2-0 midway through the third, certainly you want a victory. To have to kill off a penalty the way that they did. And yes, the Kings' power play stinks and might be something that Rob Blake and Luke Robitaille want to look at ahead of the trade deadline. You know any right shot guys that could be a fit?
Thought we weren't going to talk about that till later in the show.
Well, we'll forget that. But credit to where it's due. The Canucks penalty kill. Gave up the winner the other night in Utah, and that was unfortunate. But the penalty kill has been terrific for the Vancouver Canucks and went 4 for 4, including overtime. 4-on-3, that's pretty much a freebie. That's generally, against a lot of teams, that is lights out.
Not this Kings team.
Not this Kings team. Kings go 0 for 4 on the night, and the Canucks went 1 for 2. Garland's first to 2, power play goal, nifty little centering pass from Philip Hedl. Midway through the second period, that makes it 2-0. Canucks win the special teams battle. They win this hockey game. Again, 3-2, the final score. And yes, the overtime record hasn't been very good, but Drew O'Connor beat the Sharks in overtime just before the break. Connor Garland here tonight. So that's back-to-back, or at least consecutive trips to overtime that have won. The Canucks have found a way to win. So they're now 5-10 in games decided in overtime, and 6-11 on the season, including a couple of shootouts. So they've locked a lot of points on the table, but they didn't in this one. Kings will take the single point, I'm sure, when you're down 2-0 halfway through the third. But for the Vancouver Canucks, every point matters. And so a single point, I don't think they would have been happy if this thing had ended with the Kings finding a way to pull out the victory. So the Vancouver Canucks win it by a score of 3-2. Nils Hoglander, we haven't talked about him yet. We certainly will, but he opened the scoring. And that's become a theme here for this Vancouver Hockey Club. They have opened the scoring now in 7 straight games, 10 of their last 11. The only game they haven't was in Dallas, the night that JT got traded and Quinn got hurt. Beyond that, they haven't given up a first period goal since the first game of February which was the debut for Philip Hedl and Marcus Pettersson and Drew O'Connor against the Detroit Red Wings. Wings are the last team to score a first-period goal on the Vancouver Canucks. So they're doing a lot of good things in first periods, earlier in hockey games. First 5 minutes of this thing it just kind of felt like they stood at center ice and the puck never moved. There wasn't a whole lot going on there. I actually thought the final 15 minutes, though, of the first period, Canucks were full value for the 1-0 lead. A beautiful goal by Nils Hoglander. And like how many times Rick Tocchet's got a checklist essentially of, hold on to pucks, move your feet, get to the interior, hit the net. Well, Nils Hoglander did all of that, helped by Kiefer Sherwood with the center drive there. Derek Forbert with the nice outlet pass to hit Hoglander in the neutral zone with some speed. And more of that, please, from Nils Hoglander.
And it looked just like his last goal against the Nashville Predators. That was the last time he scored a goal for the Vancouver Canucks, and the goal is very similar. Move your feet, get to the net, someone's going to give you the puck, and Hoglander can shoot it. We all know that. He's got a great shot when he wants to, and tonight, might have hit his stick, might have tipped in front there, but it looked pretty good, and the Canucks will take it to go up 1-0 there.
Yeah, I just like the way he attacked with speed, cut to the middle, found some open ice there as we show the highlight on the live stream. And, 11 forwards. Like, I know that they had different line combinations at practice on Tuesday. Monday was a full team day off after the back-to-back weekend. Tuesday, they skated to the Kings facility, and Nils Hoglander got the promotion. Now, the way that goal was scored, Kiefer Sherwood's out there. I think Teddy Bluger was the other forward that was on the ice. So it was in the middle of a change, and with 11 forwards, maybe a little bit of a different rotation there, but you want Nils Hoglander to bring it offensively, to generate. He did just that, and so we'll see if the Canucks go with the conventional 12 forward, 6 defensemen in the back-to-back tomorrow in Anaheim, but I would think that Nils Hoglander will stay in that top 6 position along with Pettersson and DeBrus. Yeah,
and I think he's earned it, and I think that Elias Pettersson likes playing with him. Right. And I think that, you have that chemistry. You feel good about yourself. You get a goal. Your team wins the hockey game. Right. There's not much not to like. There's some good juju there heading into a game where they need to win against the Anaheim Ducks tomorrow night. But I do think he deserves a spot, and especially on that top line. I don't think he should be moved at all.
Well, let's get into the 3 stars of this hockey game. The 3 stars is selected in the building. Connor Garland with 2 goals, no surprise there, even as a visiting player, hard to ignore. Connor Garland was the first star, Adrian Kempe the second star, and Warren Foegele, the 2 goal scorers for the Kings, are their goal scorers. Kempe took a brutal penalty a mile away from the puck that led to the Garland power play goal. So, yes, he scores his team-leading 26th for the Kings, got the comeback going, but, if you're the Kings coaching staff, you can't have one of your leading players take the kind of penalty that he did there in a 1-0 deficit that then became a 2-0 lead for the Vancouver Canucks. So I'm not so sure about Kempe. Guy's got great speed, but I don't know that this was his best night. Finishes up with 2 shots on goal. And Foegele, a nifty deflection there, and a sequence that we have to get to, obviously, because it was pretty pivotal with the coach's challenge. But we'll go with our own 3 stars. And look at that, 3 Canucks. Why not? It's a Canucks post-game pod. Connor Garland, 2 goals, 4 shots on goal. The game winner, he was buzzing. He had the chance in the first period down the left wing, set up neatly by Dakota Joshua. He just looked into it. He had the tough night in Vegas on Saturday on that non-existent back check on the Brandon Saad goal. Pretty reliable guy. I'm sure he took that to heart. And so Connor Garland steps up in a big way to help the Vancouver Canucks. No doubt about it. He's the first star. Philip Hedl, 2 assists. And again, the speed is noticeable. Almost won it himself with 4 minutes to go. The post, and then that rolling puck in the blue paint.
Just sat there.
Got swept off the goal line. But I like the play that Hedl made on the power play goal to Garland in the second period. Just kind of pops out to the side of the net, and Garland found a little soft ice there, and a skilled player like Hedl is going to find his guy. And, there's Nils Hoglander. Just reward for him. Opens the scoring, kind of sets the tone for the Vancouver Canucks. Again, I like the first period. The rest of the game, not so much as they sat back. It did well to extend their lead to 2-0, but you just wonder, when they had done a lot of decent things for 40 minutes, this idea that sitting back somehow is the way to go, got outshot 11-4 in the third period, 2-1 in overtime. Okay, the Kings had the power plays. So that explains that. But again, the Canucks had 5 shots on goal over the final 24 and a half minutes of hockey. And it, they couldn't make the leads stand up the other night. They couldn't extend those leads. And that came back to bite them. And here tonight, a 2-0 lead. And that almost got away from them as well. But there you go. Clean sweep here on Rink Wide for the 3 stars. 3 stars are a presentation of Greta Bar. We were there for the Canada-U.S. Championship game of the Four Nations. It was a ton of fun. I'm sure there were people there watching this one.
Yep.
Celebrating it the night at the end of the night with Connor Garland scoring the winner. Great place to check out any game, not just Canucks hockey, but any big sporting event. Keep Greta in mind. The street food menu, the arcade games, weekly drink specials, just a great atmosphere, and truly a terrific place to watch sporting events. So if you haven't had a chance, check it out. Greta, the place to be, 50 West Cordova, Greta Bar. Let the games begin. All right. We talked about the penalty kill in overtime. Shout out to Marcus Pettersson, Derek Forbort. Not guys that you think of come overtime, but when Tyler Myers went down, and let's hope that he's okay. Again, they play 24 hours from now. He was in some real distress there, and you hate to see a guy have to be helped off the ice the way that he was. A reminder of how much these guys put themselves in harm's way.
Yeah.
And so we'll keep our fingers crossed that Tyler Myers comes out of this unscathed, but the show must go on, and they will play in Anaheim on Thursday. So second set of back-to-backs here out of the break. But when Myers went down, Pettersson came in there. Derek Forbort just really quietly has been so good on the penalty kill, and we talked about it post-game the other night that one of the reasons Utah was able to score was because it was Forbort that took the penalty in the third period. But when Forbort's been available to them, he has been terrific as a penalty killer, and really their penalty killing has ticked up since he got back in the lineup as a regular. Season was off to a tough start with the passing of his father, and you can imagine all that was on his mind there. And then he came back and got hurt in a practice of all thing, and that certainly sucked for him. But, he's not flashy, but penalty kills matter. And when every point matters, if teams are getting power plays in overtime, Derek Forbort to the rescue. So good on him. But, when I look at the way this Vancouver team played, I mean, first of all, what did you make of the idea to go 11-7?
I think that was because of what Quinn Hughes said, that he probably only expected to play a short amount of time, limit his minutes, power play time, and situations where he can go out there and he doesn't need to do too much or play too much. And then if you get yourself into penalty trouble, well, you're going to have lean on other guys a lot more, and that's exactly what they had to do. But I think it was just a precaution. I think that tomorrow night or against Anaheim, you're going to see Quinn Hughes probably play those same amount of minutes, 21, if not a lot more than that, and we'll get right back to normal where he's up to 26 a night.
Yeah, another night where Filip Hronek steps up, 26 minutes and change for him. He has been terrific, really. The last 10 games or so has elevated his performance. And another night here where Hronek steps up and logs big minutes and helps the Vancouver Canucks to this 3-2 victory. All right, we touched on the fact that the Warren Foegele goal, a lot to chew on there. I'm really curious to hear Rick Tocchet's explanation here, because in real time, I didn't see goaltender interference. I thought Foegele kind of towed the blue paint, but never really got in to Kevin Lankinen's kitchen. And honestly, I didn't even think it was a high stick. Now, the league handles the high stick review.
They wouldn't have thought it was a high stick, because that would have been done right away.
The coach's challenge, though, was for goaltender interference in a 2-1 game, knowing that if you roll the dice and it goes against you, you're giving the Kings, who've just tied this game, momentum with a power play. Now, maybe they took into account that, the Kings aren't very good on the power play. If it's the Oilers, if it's Colorado, maybe you're not making that decision, because there's a pretty good chance that's going to just come right back to bite you. This Kings team does struggle on the power play, went 0-for-4, as we said. But just a curious case. I didn't see anything to me that looked like definitive goaltender interference. I thought Foegele actually did a pretty nice job of avoiding contact in that situation. Lankinen is there. He's moving to his right, and Foegele reaches out and deflects it, and ultimately turns into the tying goal at 14:01 of that third period.
Yeah, I mean, look, it was a brutal challenge. I don't think that there's any explanation otherwise. Maybe the Canucks were thinking that by doing that, they would see a possible high stick, but even then, the league would have looked at it already before they challenged it. right away. They would have buzzed down for a league review of the goal if they thought it was a high stick, and that would have been done. Clearly, they didn't do that. I just don't think it was a good challenge. The Canucks have been very good on challenges. They've done their part and had things, but this one was a miss, and you're going to have those in the course of a season. At this point in the game, I'm not entirely sure that was the right call, and they got burned for it. It's as simple as that.
Yeah, and again, I'm curious to hear what Rick Tocchet saw, what he was looking for ultimately. At 2-0, midway through the third period, Canucks seemed to be in pretty good shape, although you could feel it. I mean, you leaned over to me here in studio and said, like, look out, it's coming here. And sure enough, as I look through my notes, Mikey Anderson had a point shot that they talked about on the broadcast as well through some traffic, and Lankinen had to flash out a right pad. I think it may have been deflected multiple times. Kempe scores off the rush. Great shot. Do we think it was deflected by the Myers stick? Like, I've seen the replay a couple times.
It looked like it kind of fluttered a little bit.
Yeah. I mean, just right bar down, like tough.
Great shot.
It was. And we talked a little bit about Kempe's night. How did Trevor Moore not score at the side of the net there at 2-1? Like, the Canucks dodged a massive bullet, and I thought, okay, maybe that's it. Maybe that's the best chance the Kings are going to get.
Yeah, and you saw a miss and just looked to the sky. Like, he put it where a place it was harder for him to put the puck than it was to put in the net. Quick update from LA. Tyler Myers is okay, according to Thomas Drance. Big red welt on his neck because a shot he blocked and a nerve momentarily made him a little bit dizzy. Rick Tocchet suggested post-game, obviously dodged a bullet. Sounds like Myers may even be an option for Thursday in Anaheim. So good news there on the Tyler Myers front.
Absolutely. When we talk about some of the other defensemen, I mean, getting Quinn Hughes back, huge development for the Vancouver Canucks. There's a trickle down. I love the fact that the rookie DPD stays in the lineup. Victor Mancini came out. And I thought for 45 minutes or so that Carson Susi had himself a bit of a redemption game. He was a healthy scratch again the other night in Utah. I thought he was physical. He had that play in the second period where he upended Quentin Byfield, who's a big body. And,
yep.
They showed a highlight pack coming out of one of the intermissions of Susi and his night, and I thought he was fairly effective. Unfortunately for him, he was on the ice for both Los Angeles goals. I'm not saying he was at fault for both of them, but, obviously when the opposing team scores twice and you're out there for both of them, not the cleanest night then in that regard, but, I saw some signs. He looked for much of this night, I think, like a more effective Carson Susi, which is good because, A, the Canucks may need him here.
Mm-hmm.
B, if he is in fact expendable with the development of DPD and some of the new faces, you want him playing well ahead of the trade deadline to attract some interest around the National Hockey League if there are teams that are out there looking to shore up their blue line. So I think it's kind of a win-win for the Vancouver Canucks if they can get Carson Susi back and playing effectively.
Yeah, I mean, look, the report that was out earlier this season that they're shopping Carson Susi and he's available, still very much there. The trade deadline's 3 games away now for the Vancouver Canucks. Everything's on the table for this hockey team and for a lot of other general managers around the National Hockey League. We'll get to some trade deadline stuff a little bit later, but you're right. I mean, not only do they need him playing positively for them, but if he's really not going to be in their plans, they need these guys to play at their best hockey. And also, you hope that you can collect points while these guys are doing it too. So you're always looking to improve your team in different ways, whether it's guys that you currently have that need to play better or someone that you are going to acquire via trade. But to have Carson Susi kind of be able to get into that player where they envisioned him having or envisioned him being, I think that's an important step. And he's had moments of it this season, Jeff, where we've said, he might have been their best defenseman tonight. And then he's had moments where obviously we thought that he should be in the press box, and he has been in the press box at points this season as well. So we'll take it for what it is. One good game from Carson Susi. Let's see if we can get the consistency in him playing again good tomorrow night.
Yeah, and it is a quick turnaround against an Anaheim team that's starting to play a little bit better hockey. Not even starting, really since the middle of December. They've been surprisingly good. And the fact that we've been talking about them as a team that the Canucks at least have to be mindful of. That's why a win like this one's so important to pick up points on Calgary and on Utah and on St. Louis, but also on the Anaheim Ducks. Now, yes, the Canucks won Earth. We've painted the picture, though, that they sat back way too much in the third period.
Yep.
Looking under the hood a little bit here, the high danger opportunities at 5-on-5 in this hockey game favored the Kings 12-2. Canucks had 2 high-danger chances the entire hockey game, according to Natural Stat Trick, and they both came in the first period. The high dangers over the final 45 minutes of this game at 5-on-5 were 9-0 in favor of the Los Angeles Kings. Like, it does make you wonder, for all the people out there that keep questioning the coach, like, how can this be a strategy just to park the bus and think that somehow you're going to get results when it continues to work against the Vancouver Canucks?
Yeah, I mean, you and I sit here game after game and talk about the same thing. This team just gets a lead, 1 goal, 2 goal, and they hope nothing bad happens. And if another team pulls the goalie and you take your shot for an empty net, yeah, you win 3-0 or you win 3-1 or whatever. This is one of those games where it had all of the opportunity with the LA Kings coming back and tying the game and could have easily won the game in overtime with a power play opportunity. If their power play didn't stink, they probably could have. But I think that, if you're the Vancouver Canucks, yeah, a lot of it, like you mentioned, sitting back and parking the bus, and a lot of that's on system too, right? And what you want from the head coach. So a lot of that's on him. But you got to be assertive if you're players too, though. Like, you got to not just dump it, not get across the blue line and just put the puck in. Like, you need to have that killer instinct, and this team just doesn't have it. We watch hockey games all the time. I mean, I'm sure a lot of people in our chats are screaming about a lot of things right now, but they just don't. They don't have a game where you can see utter domination from start to finish. And we've sat here and we've talked about that for so many times this season, Jeff, that this team just doesn't have that killer instinct. They don't have that next step. They don't have that next gear. They have been unable to show that, okay, get the first one, get the second one, and then, you know what, put this game away and get the third one. And they just are unable to do that.
Well, 3 goals just seems like a monumental ask. They did beat Colorado 3-0 just before the break, but if goals remain an issue for the Vancouver Canucks, 12 goals now in their last 6 hockey games. They are 4-2 in that span. Yep. So that speaks to goaltending. It speaks to penalty killing. And some timely goals, like against the Leafs just before the break. Brock Boeser scores a third-period power play goal. But of those 12 goals, the Canucks have 4 goals at 5-on-5 in their last 6 hockey games. I repeat, 4 goals at 5-on-5 in their last 6. Now, they got through with a power play goal and an overtime goal, so they found some different game states. But the bulk of the game is played at 5-on-5. You have to be able to generate some offense. So we talked about the chances, chance generation, and ultimately 17 shots for the Vancouver Canucks. You are playing with fire in a huge way if you think that you're going to win most nights with 17 shots. Now, we know that the Canucks don't generate a lot of shots. They are one of the lowest shot generators. So this isn't anything new necessarily. But against high-flying teams, and the other part there is, we talked about the fact that, yeah, they open the scoring all the time. You're not going to open the scoring every game. There are going to be some nights where you fall behind, and at that point, can Rick Tocchet open it up? Will the players find a way to open it up? And, look, we've made it through half an hour here without mentioning Elias Pettersson. I think that's progress, actually. Quite frankly, I know the people.
We didn't mention it.
I know the people in the chat. I get that.
Just you and I haven't talked about it, but everyone else is.
The Beer Baron says just the aura of having Hughes on the ice was noticeable. It was.
I agree.
He makes a difference, and we said he was a little rusty and fumbled the pucks at times, but there were also some plays that only Quinn Hughes can make for the Vancouver Canucks. But if we're going to go there, let's go there then with Elias Pettersson, because I thought through the first 40 minutes, he had some moments. Mm-hmm. We actually saw him taking guys on one-on-one. He came in on the rush in the second period. Snapshot off the rush that looked dangerous. I think David Riddick was forced to make a pretty decent save there on the power play, attacking with some speed. He's not the fastest guy out there, but there were moments. But at the end of the night, doesn't figure in the scoring. Just 1 shot on goal. Played 19 minutes and 7 seconds and wins 6 of 14 faceoffs, so comes up just shy of 50% in the faceoff circle. But faceoffs aside, we won't worry about that. It's the 1 shot on goal, and it's the no points. And so even, that's the problem here, is if this was a night that felt like a little bit of an uptick, there's still no fingerprints at all on the end result.
I hate the 1 shot. And you want to know why? It's because we've seen it so often. For a player of his caliber, for a player of, yes, the $11.6 million, for a player that's signed for the next 8 seasons here as a Vancouver Canuck, No JT Miller now. That's gone. All the other stories and excuses are gone. You are supposed to be the best player on this hockey team other than Quinn Hughes. You are offensively their best talent by far. You're paid like it. You got to be selfish sometimes. And I think that for Elias Pettersson, he needs to learn that, where, puck's on your stick, shoot the puck. Like they said it on the broadcast. It's probably been said, a lot of different times. Rick Tocchet said it, just shoot the puck. And we've all seen it, what type of shot that he has, what type of deception that he can provide when he does get into those shooting positions and putting himself there. But that's half the battle too, Jeff. He doesn't get himself in those positions where the one-timer's lethal, where comes across the center of the ice and just snap shots, just not doing that as well either. The one shot that he had, he did do that. So when you don't see it, that's, I think, where the frustration is in the fan base. And then all the other talk comes about the money and the contract and all of that. But if Elias Pettersson was figuring in on the score sheet and, getting, or not figuring in on the score sheet, but shooting the puck 3 or 4 times a night, I don't think people would have as much of a problem with it.
Well, the Kings went with a pretty hard matchup, Mikey Anderson and Vladislav Gavrikov, and it didn't go particularly well for Elias Pettersson. Philip Deneau was his most common opponent among the forward group, and obviously Phil Deneau has established himself as one of the top defensive forwards in the National Hockey League. But on the night, when you look at Elias Pettersson, the underlying numbers, shot attempts were 20-10 in the Kings' favor, so a 2-1 margin. Again, this is supposed to be your top center. The actual shots on goal favored LA 5-4, so a bunch of shots that either missed or were blocked. But still, the Canucks generated 4 shots on goal at 5-on-5 with Elias Pettersson out there. That's not good enough. It's just not good enough at all. I thought the one change that Rick Tocchet did make, and I was kind of curious about it, but putting Philip Hedl between Connor Garland and Dakota Joshua. Those 2 guys on the wings have had a bunch of centers. They've played with different guys over the last year and a bit. When you play with Philip Hedl, it's all about can you keep up? He sets the pace, and he was skating well again in this hockey game. We talked about Garland. He was the first star. And credit where it's due, not as noticeable, but and they talked about it on the broadcast as well. Some flowers for Dakota Joshua. I thought he was invested. He was involved. I thought he used his size. He had that one defensive back check where he was able to deflect a centering pass up over the glass and out of play that looked like it was going to get to Fiala. And if it got to his stick, look out. So
got an assist.
Yeah, and he got an assist on the power play as well. So I thought that to me that without a doubt was the best line for the Vancouver Canucks on the night.
Yeah, and I think that the Dakota Joshua, he's kind of starting to come onto his own a little bit in the last couple games. He's been there and he's been showing signs of, old Dakota Joshua. We've seen it, him being in front of the net, being a nuisance. You mentioned the defensive play, getting on the score sheet, not throwing his body around too much, just one hit, but 15:51 of ice time, and he played quite a bit. Right, he was kind of depended on there by the Vancouver Canucks and in key situations. That second power play unit, I kind of like it. I don't really mind that unit with the way that they move the puck there.
And I'm glad you brought up the power play because this hasn't really been talked about. When you think of no Quinn Hughes for the last month and the transition from JT Miller to new faces, primarily Hedl, power play's been solid. Canucks power play is 5 for its last 20. I mean, that's a goal every 4 opportunities. That's 25%, which is better than its season average. You probably wouldn't expect that without Quinn Hughes and trying some different guys. And right now, and the last couple of games, really out of the break here, instead of loading up with what they feel is their best offensive talent, they've kind of split and gone for a little more balance.
Yeah.
I'm not sure that I love that idea, and yet it's hard to argue in the short term here with production. And another power play goal, and as we said, the Kings didn't score, so Canucks win the special teams battle. They end up winning the hockey game. Connor Garland has been a fixture. A lot of people have wondered, why Connor Garland? Why is he always keeping his spot on the power play? Some entries and some puck retrievals, but there you saw it tonight. Smart play. If you watch the replay, Connor Garland comes out of the corner and recognizes that there is sort of that soft spot there on the ice. He finds himself, and at this level, if you put yourself in a position to score, you got to trust that there's enough skill elsewhere, and certainly with Philip Hedl, there was. He finds him in a bang-bang play, and then he gets tackled at the side of the net. But
it's because Connor Garland's a pain in the ass to play against, right? And not even on the just 5-on-5, but even on the power play. His puck retrievals, he gets low, he makes life difficult for opposing's defensemen and on the forecheck. So That's one of the reasons why that he's on that top power play unit. But now that they have Quinn Hughes back, it kind of is balanced more because Hughes is going to play the 2 minutes anyways.
Right.
So he's going to be there. They're going to have Quinn Hughes on usually for the whole 2 minutes. So I don't mind it. I wish that Elias Pettersson in that top unit, quote unquote top unit, would shoot the puck a lot more. But if they're scoring and they're getting, special teams points, then really what can we say about it?
Yeah, power play 3 minutes and 21 seconds because they scored on one of their two opportunities. So 3:21 of power play time, just 3 shots on goal. But they converted on their third of 3 shots on the night and made the Kings pay. All right, let's get to the stat that stands out. And we told you right off the top that Resurrection Spirits is joining us here on Rink Wide Vancouver, and we're delighted to have them on board. We'll get to the stat. We'll get Jacob to bring it up, and then we'll tell you. And we mentioned this a little bit earlier, that Canucks have opened the scoring 7 straight, 10 of their last 11. The only time that it didn't happen was on January the 31st in Dallas. So, I mean, statistically, the first goal is supposed to matter. It should give you some jump. Obviously, put a little pressure on the other team. It'd be nice if you could build on it. They did tonight, and even then, made life difficult on themselves. But again, the fact that they're not getting scored on early, credit to the goaltending, credit to the penalty killing when they've had to do that as well. So for the season now, the Canucks have played 58 games. They have opened the scoring 29 times and given up the first goal 29 times. So for a while there, it felt like they were getting burned early a bunch, but really the last month and a half, that has not been the case whatsoever. The stat that stands out is a presentation of Resurrection Spirits, an East Vancouver company that's doing great things in the spirit space. And given the times we're living in, it's more important than ever to support local. So give Resurrection Spirits a try. They've partnered with our friends to come up with Carson Price Gin. Again, it's made in East Van. It's using BC ingredients. It's a gin with character designed for those who appreciate the art of true craftsmanship in every pour. Use the code S&P for $5 off. Check it out at resurrectionspirits.ca. You can find their entire product line on the website. Easy to navigate. It's a fun website. It's got an old-timey look. I was on there playing around. Click on the dry gin tab, and you'll see the Carson Price Gin. Get it while you can. Once the bottles are gone, they are gone. And it's great to have Resurrection Spirits on board with us here at Rink Wide. What did we make of Kevin Lenkinen's night?
I thought it was okay.
Yeah.
Didn't have to be spectacular. The Kempe goal, can't fault him at all on that one. He made his saves when he needed to. Either of the goals, you can't really fault him. But yeah, I think Kevin Lankinen you're going to get a very good effort out of Kevin Lankinen on most nights. Let's just say it this way. He's going to give you a chance to win. I don't think you're putting Kevin Lankinen in net being like, oh man, this is where the guys in net, we know we have to play better in front of him. I think Kevin Lankinen has earned the right to go in and for Rick Tocchet's perspective, give his team a chance to win every single night. It's going to be interesting if it is, in fact, it's probably going to be Arthur Shilov's tomorrow night against the Anaheim Ducks.
If the Canucks had lost this one,
then
I wonder if that changes the conversation. Again, Lankinen faced 26 shots. This wasn't a high-event hockey game. He was busy in the third. But if they had lost all 3 coming out of the break and every point mattered, the problem there is that Seattle on Saturday is their 3rd game in 4 nights. And, Seattle doesn't play until Saturday. So as the Canucks are playing the Kings, Kraken are idle. Canucks play in Anaheim on Thursday, Kraken are idle. They got Friday off as well, and then they get back at it on Saturday. So the end of the road trip, 5th game in 8 nights for the Canucks, and the Kraken, they are going to be well rested, and really, they didn't play very much in St. Louis because they got their lunch fed to them by the Blues. So they're going to be a mad hockey club, and their playoff hopes pretty much cooked. It'll be interesting to see what the Kraken do between now and the trade deadline. Be interesting to see what the Vancouver Canucks do, and we'll talk a little bit more about that. Just talking about Lankinen, though, I see the NHL put out the fact that Lankinen has now tied Gary Smith for the 3rd most wins in a goaltender's first season with the Canucks. Only Roberto Luongo with 47 in his first season, and Ryan Miller with 29. So Lankinen picking up his 20th win of the year. There's enough runway here, especially with Demko's injury status and the unknown there. Does Kevin Lankinen have 9 more wins in him? Yeah, I mean, I think if the Canucks are going to be a playoff team, he better have 9 more wins. They've got 24 games to go. He's not going to play them all, but yeah, certainly something to chart here to see where things ultimately wind up for Kevin Lankinen and the Vancouver Canucks. Speaking of the trade deadline, I want to mention, as we have on each of our rink wides here recently, the countdown's on March the 7th, Friday, March the 7th. The daily face-off trade deadline special comes your way that day, 8 o'clock in the morning to around 1 o'clock Pacific time. And the DFO Live team is going to be on top of it all, breaking down every single move as it happens, instant reaction, expert analysis, all the behind-the-scenes drama, the biggest deals of the day, checking in on the hottest markets around the league. You can tune in to Daily Faceoff's YouTube channel and follow all of the Daily Faceoff socials in the days leading into the deadline, and then, of course, on deadline day, March the 7th, which is a game night for the Vancouver Canucks at home to the Minnesota Wild. So after all the dust settles, and we'll see what the Canucks and other teams around them do, we'll do our usual rink wide, but certainly we'll pay attention, obviously, to the big news of the day and see how it affects the Vancouver Canucks. So the countdown, yes, it is on now. 3 games, right?
Yep.
3 games for the Canucks between now and the deadline.
Well, the Wild are interesting because they're losing players left, right, and center.
Yeah.
Right? So they're going to play themselves into a playoff spot, or what do they think they are? Eriksson Ek, I think that's long-term, a little bit longer than what was first reported. Kaprizov as well, how long that's going to be. It's interesting. You know, the Minnesota Wild always have ties to the Vancouver Canucks and one Burnsville, Minnesota native, but so do a lot of other teams.
Yep.
And I think right now what we know about Brock Boeser and the Vancouver Canucks, we saw the Ian McIntyre article about Brock Boeser saying the situation is pretty frustrating, and it is for him.
Sure.
I think that, the Canucks don't want to go over a 6-year deal. I don't even think they want to go over a 5-year deal for Brock Boeser, to be honest. Brock's probably getting 7 in free agency, and if he gets traded, a team could give him 8 years. It's the term for him, I think, is the biggest thing. And if the Canucks are going low, the AAV has to be high. And it's not going to be high enough where an AAV of $8 million over 5 years at $40 million when Brock can get 49 over 7 somewhere else. That's a difference of $9 million. I know Brock's loyal. I know he loves Vancouver, and he's made no secret about that. Every single person knows that covers him. Obviously, Jeff, and how much he loves his time here. But I also think and really do believe that, he's a guy that's been here as long as tenured Canuck.
Yep.
He's been in front of this management team for, 3 years now. I don't think that the still evaluating comment rubbed him the right way.
And I get that. I understand that. I wonder, too, I get it's negotiation, and there's still a week plus before the deadline. He could get through the deadline and still be a Canuck, and then obviously up until July the 1st, they've got a chance to negotiate as well. But at this stage of the proceedings, do you think 5 years, is that insulting to Boeser and his camp in any way?
I think it's insulting if it's a low money. I really do. I think that he's a guy that's taken a couple bridge deals.
Yep.
Right? And now he's looking for, rightfully so, like any other player would in the National Hockey League, when you have a chance to go and get that big contract and go get your money. I'm the first person to say, go get your bag. You absolutely do. Go get your money. And unfortunately, I just don't think it's going to happen here. Now, look, a phone call can change absolutely everything, but I'm not entirely sure either side is budging on making a phone call to try and make something like that work.
This wasn't Brock's best game, and
No.
yet some of his best hockey in the National Hockey League has been against the LA Kings. He's torched them in his career. He had 17 goals coming in 22 career games against the Kings. Remember, he had a hat trick early in his career in Los Angeles. No shots on goal. And that's when Brock is a volume shooter. 16 and a half minutes, no shots on goal. And kind of curious right now. And again, I wonder if all this is weighing on him. Came out of the break, was on a line with Philip Hedl and Drew O'Connor, and that just didn't really seem like a fit. The knock, and it's fair. I mean, foot speed kind of has always been the issue with Brock. I'm not sure that maybe the Canucks were trying to get him to get on his horse and keep up with those guys. It just didn't really feel like there was a whole lot happening there. Again, with 11 forwards, we saw a bunch of different combinations, but the plan at practice, at least yesterday, he was playing with Pius Suter and O'Connor. So he's played a lot with Suter over the last year and a little bit. And again, I didn't think that line had a whole lot happening. So let's see what tomorrow in Anaheim. That's the beauty. If you have an off night, and you're playing back to back, you get right back at it on Thursday on the pond.
Well, it's no secret that Brock needs a good center. I mean, he scored 40 goals with JT Miller, played with Elias Pettersson, has had success with Elias Pettersson. I mean, the LA Kings need a right shot guy, and they've got a couple pretty good centers. So there's always that's been thrown out there, as well as amongst obviously some other teams for Brock. But I don't think that, I know you mentioned before, it's kind of weighing on him a little bit. I don't think that he would have said what he said to Ian McIntyre in that article if he didn't know what was going to happen from it. Like, he's obviously frustrated. There's obviously some stuff going on. He's obviously thinking about it. And I think that there is a solution here. And if the Canucks win the next 2 games, there might be a situation where they say, okay, well, we need him.
Yeah.
Right? Unless a team can come in with some sort of offer that the Canucks are happy with, whether it's a late first-round pick and maybe a prospect or something like that for the services of Brock Boeser, or is it 2 picks or whatever it is. But the offer is going to have to be something the Canucks like, and is Brock willing to sign an extension with a new team? So lots of variables that have to be taken into consideration.
Well, Nux for Cup in the chat says Minnesota's going to take a page out of the Vegas playbook, trade for Brock with Kaprizov on LTIR until Game 1. I mean, at some point in his career, it does sort of feel like he has to play for the Minnesota Wild. Like, he's just been linked there. Everybody's got a hometown. And yet, for some reason, it just feels like there have been so many overtures out there. Look, talk is cheap, I get it, but it just so often people link the Minnesota Wild and Brock Boeser.
He played his first game there, scored his first goal.
I get it all. Like, that's where you grew up.
It's incredible.
But there are 32 teams in the National Hockey League, and I think there are a bunch of teams that would be interested. He's a proven goal scorer. He's got a track record from the playoffs last year. Outside of the cheap shot from Tanner Jeannot, and fortunately there was no reoccurrence of that. Jeannot wasn't much of a factor in this hockey game. That's the only time he's missed this season. Like, people keep, I see a lot of like, he's injury prone. I push back on that a little bit. Like, the blood clot came sort of out of nowhere in the playoffs, and that sucked for him that he didn't get to experience a Game 7. But otherwise, he sat out Game 82 in Winnipeg to get ready for the playoffs, but a bunch of guys did. Otherwise, he played every game last year outside of the concussion. He's played every game available this year, played every game in the shortened season, the 56-game season. Yes, injuries were a part of the Brock Boeser story early on. Now, I think it's a contact sport. Lots of guys have missed a lot more time than Brock Boeser. So I don't see him necessarily. Like, if I'm an acquiring team, there are some issues. He's not the perfect player, but I don't think it's fair to saddle him with the injury label anymore, right?
What did he have? 16, 17 power play goals last season? 16, I think it was. The LA Kings scored 0 today, and they had 4 opportunities against the Vancouver Canucks. They're a team
one of the
that
worst power plays in the National Hockey League, without a doubt. Now, if I'm the Kings, I would be looking long and hard if he is on the block here. I mean, like, it's a good Kings team defensively, but they're just where they're positioned. They're going to run into Edmonton again or Vegas in that 2-3 matchup. Like, you got to have a power play that can come through for you at crunch time in the playoffs. And so, if I'm in that locker room, like, there's a lot of good pieces. Do we know why Drew Doughty didn't play tonight, by the way?
Lower body injury. That's what the Kings were saying.
He missed the first 47 games of the year, battled back, was part of Team Canada. But let's hope hockey's better when he's in it. He plays the villain role, plays a lot for the Kings, so certainly something to monitor there. Anyways,
we'll get to some more trade stuff tomorrow with a different player this time.
All right. Well, hey, new day tomorrow.
Yes,
a day closer to the
we'll
trade deadline.
We'll do it all in one day.
All right. Well, let's get to the line of the game, the line of the night. It's a presentation of Bet365. What have you got your eye on for what's coming down the pipe in the National Hockey League?
Yeah, Jeff, portion of the show brought to you by Bet365, proud partner of Sick Harrison Price. Canucks conversation, you and I here at Rink Wide Vancouver. Open account with Bet365 today. Bet on a huge range of markets. Use code NATION. Whatever the moment's never ordinary at Bet365. Busy night in the NHL schedule tomorrow. I think the Edmonton Oilers finally end their run of playing really bad hockey. What did their coach call them, soft, or said the group is fragile? I think that's what their coach called them, said that the group is fragile, which is basically saying that they're soft. I like the Ducks. I like the Ducks on the money line. I'm sorry. I know this is a Canucks post-game show, but you know what? And you also trying to make some people money here. And I like the Montreal Canadiens at home against the San Jose Sharks. Those three together gives you some pretty good odds. Artur Shilov's in net for the Vancouver Canucks.
Probably.
Don't really know what's going to be happening with Tyler Myers, if he can go, if he can't go. And then we'll see what happens there. But yeah, that's pretty much it.
Yeah, I mean, you don't generally...
and they're not that good on back. The Canucks haven't been good on the second of back-to-backs this season.
They have not, and we saw that in Utah the other night as well. They've won 1 of 6 second halves of back-to-backs. So this is an opportunity. They play the Ducks 3 more times down the stretch.
Yep.
They got 24 games to go, 3 of them. The only opponent that the Canucks will face 3 more times this season, the Anaheim Ducks. But when you say that, I think people would be surprised. The Ducks they lost in Buffalo. They had a 2-0 lead in the third period, let it get away. That wrapped up a road trip coming out of the break. They haven't played a home game since February the 8th, I think, or the 4th. So it's been a while since they've played on the pond. Irf, the Ducks are 7-2-1 in their last 10 games. If you look in the Western Conference standings, the last 10 games, the Anaheim Ducks have more points than any team other than the Winnipeg Jets, who may never lose again, won their 11th straight, beating Ottawa earlier. But since the middle of December, Anaheim's 15-11-3. They've got 33 points since the middle of December. With the 2 tonight that the Canucks got, they have 30. Anaheim's got 3 more points than the Canucks since the middle of December.
Those pesky Ducks.
Yeah, they were down in Detroit the other day, came back to force overtime. A lot of it's on the back of their goaltending. Like, Lucas Dostal is rocking a 9-10 save percentage on a bad team. He's generally their guy because John Gibson can't stay healthy. But when Gibson's played, he's got a 9-16 save percentage on the season. The Ducks have the 6th best 5-on-5 save percentage in the National Hockey League. So we talked about the struggles of the Canucks at 5-on-5, and now they're running into a team that gets great goaltending at even strength. Frank Vatrano leads the Ducks. He's got 17 goals. Troy Terry has 16. Terry leads the team with 42 points. That's 10 more than anybody else. They are a low-scoring bunch. So I wouldn't...
Low-event hockey.
Yeah, I mean, this one wasn't a great game against the Kings. I would expect a little bit more. No Trevor Zegras, suspended the other night for the high hit. And when it's Michael Rasmussen, it is a high hit. Kind of looked like Tanner Jeannot on Brock Boeser a little bit. And
it was bad.
Yeah. Got a 3-game suspension. Tomorrow's game will be the second of those 3, so no Trevor Zegras. First look for the Canucks at Jacob Trouba in a Ducks uniform. He was picked up.
Also likes to hit people.
December. Yeah, speaking of high hard hits. Canucks beat the Ducks handily 5-1 back in November. It was a rare night when Elias Pettersson and Brock Boeser scored in the same game, and one of the 2 road games that Elias Pettersson has scored in this season. Ducks have not been to Vancouver yet, but they'll come. In fact, next week. They're here. And then an afternoon game, a 1 o'clock start on a Saturday. I don't see a lot of early Saturday starts that early, but on April the 5th. So, as we said, 3 more games against the Ducks this season for the Canucks. And if they are going to be a playoff team, it kind of feels like they're going to have to run the table. They can't leave many, if any, points on the table against a team like Anaheim.
No, they can't. And to further that, they can't leave many points anywhere right now with the way that the teams below them are playing, right? 1, 2, you can't get 0. You really can't. You're going to win 1 of every 2 games, right? You really can't. You're in a position right now where you are in the fight. This is where you want it to be. You want to be playing your best hockey in March and April and, getting into a run to make the playoffs and don't coast in and things like that. Well, you're going to have a chance to do that here in the next couple months.
Well, we'll see what Thursday night brings. The Vancouver Canucks and the Anaheim Ducks, stop number 4 on this 5-game road trip. Again, 2 sets of back-to-backs, and then the game in Seattle on Saturday, but they can't worry about the Kraken right now. Chance to back this one up. They got to play better for a full 60 minutes, but at the end of the night, they got the goal that they needed in overtime after killing off the penalty to Drew O'Connor, and it was Connor Garland with his second of the night. He's up to 16 goals on the season, and, oh, by the way, the second of the 2 by Garland, he breaks out of this 5-way logjam among Canuck forwards for the team's forward scoring lead. Quinn's got to 60 now and has this wide gap. But as far as forwards go, when Garland scored his first of 2, he joined Jake DeBrusk, Elias Pettersson, Brock Boeser, and JT Miller. All of them at 35 points. And then Garland gets the goal, gets his 36th point. So at the end of the night, Connor Garland leads all Canuck forwards with 36 points. Good for him. Maybe not great for the hockey club. At this stage of the end of February, who would have thought that the Canucks leading forward would have 36 points on the season?
Not me.
No.
Not me at all. Farhan chirping us. Says if Irv can wear a hat, so can I on Saturday. You can wear all the hats you want, Farhan.
Yeah. You're back in tomorrow. And then Farhan will slide in on Saturday. So, all right. Well, we look forward to that. And we look forward to having all of you back as well. Let's make it a date. Canucks playing a bunch of hockey here. 5 games in 8 nights. Their final 25 games over 50 nights. So not a lot of nights off for them, and that means not a lot of nights off for us here at Rink Wide either. But it wasn't the prettiest, but at the end of the night, the result looks pretty good. The Canucks pick up their 27th win of the season with a 3-2 victory over the Los Angeles Kings in overtime. For Jake Lazar helping out behind the scenes, and for Irf, I'm Jeff. Thanks so much for catching this episode of Rink Wide Vancouver.